Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Chris Recinos, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Nurse Leader Network. And I'm also Chief Nurse Executive for a large healthcare system in the United States. And so today, I thought I'd take you on a little journey to teach you how to define your life's mission, your purpose, your priorities, and how to really instill resilience in yourself. And so why don't we go ahead and get started? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you on a couple different scenarios that have happened in my life, a couple of my life experiences. I'm going to ask that you reflect on things that have happened in your life that really resonate with you. So think about, as I share my story, times that you had similar feelings in that way. So I'm going to take it back, retro. This year was the year that the word internet was first used. It was the year that that AIDS was discovered, and people really began to talk about it. It was the year of Miami Vice. It was the time of year where the trees and the leaves were changing. And so, can you guys all guess what year that was? For those of you who said 1981, you are correct. So 1981, that was the year that I was born. And, I grew up in a seemingly normal childhood. I didn't realize, and it didn't occur to myself and my siblings, that having drug paraphernalia laying around the house was not an abnormal thing. It was something that was not normal. We didn't realize that it was not normal to have screaming and fighting and abuse every single day. We didn't realize, I'm the oldest of 7, and we didn't realize that you were supposed to eat dinner every day, or that you were supposed to have breakfast before you went to school. And so, we went through this turmoil of life, and we were genuinely just really happy kids. And regardless of what was going on in our life, we really didn't understand the implications of what we were living in, and we were happy regardless of what was happening. And so I would like for you to take a moment or two to think about, go back in time, what was going on around the time of your birth? What culture were you born into? What time were you born into? What was going on? For the 2020 babies, I'm sitting here on the weekend where we're on our 6th straight day of protests for Black Lives Matter. And so think about what was going on when you were born, what was happening, good, bad, positive. Think about the things that you lived through that maybe was normal to you, but wouldn't have been what society would say is normal. And so I'm going to give you a moment to do that. So I'll keep going on in my story. When I was about 10 years old, I came home from school one day, and there was police and social workers at my home. And that was the last time that we lived with my biological mother. And so we were all placed into foster care. And as you can imagine, we all reacted. We didn't go into the same home. There were 7 of us, and we went to 5 different homes. And for many of us, that was the last time that we saw each other until we became adults. And so, I began having some rebellion. I thought I knew everything at the age of 10, 11, and 12, and kind of did my own thing. I was, one of my foster homes said that I was the ringleader of the circus. And so whether that was good or bad, I think it's carried on into my adult life, and that's okay. I don't mind being the ringleader. So I want you to think about a time in your life where you just reacted. There was something that was going on in your life, positive or negative, right? It could have been a great thing like a marriage or a birth, or it could have been something really traumatic like a loss. And so think about a time that you reacted, how you behaved, what was going on in your mind. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next re and our road to resiliency. So, I had to reintegrate. I had to really understand that hitting wasn't okay. I had to learn that, you had meals every day, and, that it wasn't normal to fight and have the chaos. And that was really hard for me as a child to not express my anger in the way that I had learned how to express it. And so it took a lot of steps, a lot of really getting back into where I needed to be and learn about my role and what I could do with my life as I reintegrated into my new normal. And so thinking about reintegration, we're at this really pivotal time in our world. We are coming, in the midst of a pandemic, and we're seeing things smooth down, but we know that this isn't the end. We don't have a vaccine and we don't have a good treatment. And so, we're really looking at how do we reintegrate into the world as we know it. And then we're now in this, area of protests and riots and really, really, really trying as a community to lift our people up. And so, think about how you are reintegrating into what this is. What does this mean for you? I'm part of a group of entrepreneurs, and there was a huge uproar over the weekend regarding Black Lives Matter. And so, it was, I think, a wake-up call for a lot of people who hadn't taken the time to really understand what was going on in our community around things that are, challenges and things that we face every single day. And so think about reintegration. Where are you at with your integration? What was the time that you had to reintegrate, and what did it look like? What steps did it take from you? So we'll fast forward a little bit in my story. And, I found myself when I was in foster care one day in the hospital. And I was in the worst excruciating pain I had ever been in my entire life. Can you guess where I was at or why I was there? So I was there because I was actually in labor at 15 years old with my first daughter, Harmony. And I'll tell you a little story about that. I actually had my daughter, and back in those days in foster care, when you were a foster kid and you went into the hospital, if you lived in a group home, they dropped you off at the hospital. Nobody stayed with you, and then they'd come pick you up when you were discharged. And so, I had a nurse that really kind of taught me the steps that I was going to be going through in terms of the labor process, taught me about breastfeeding, taught me about, everything that I didn't have another adult there to teach me. And then once I emancipated, I went back into the foster care setting, the group home. There was a nurse that I had there that taught me a lot about life and about how to treat people with respect. And she didn't judge me for being a teen mom. She really taught me the things that I needed to know about parenting, and really, really was my guiding force, and ultimately was the reason that I became the nurse that you see before you today. And a side story, I became a chief nurse executive, the role that I'm in right now. And within a month of taking the position, I was giving an award to a unit in my hospital for their patient satisfaction. And this nurse looks at me, and I look at her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know her. We used to work together somewhere. And she looked at me and she's like, used to work together somewhere? Like, what hospital was it? And we're sitting there trying to figure it out. And then, like, before you knew it, her eyes started watering up and my eyes started watering up. And she said, you're Christina, the Christina with Harmony. And we both realized at the moment that she was that nurse. She was my nurse when I was a teen mom, and who had taught me everything. And I was able to share with her how big of an impact she had on my life. And so, total side story, but had to really reimagine what my life would be. I had always thought that I'd do something large, and I just didn't know exactly what that would be. And I was thinking about medical school, and that was out of the question with the baby. And so it really had to reimagine what my life would be like. Where was I going to take it? What did I want to do in terms of how I wanted to show up as a mother? And so I want you to think about a time that you had to reimagine. You went into life thinking that you knew certain things to be facts, and something happened, and you now had to reimagine what your life might look like. And I'm seeing it every day. I have friends that own restaurants, and in the middle of COVID, they may not be opening their restaurants back up. And so reimagining, just thinking about reimagining what your life is going to be now based on whatever you went through. So I had to rework. I was determined. I went to nursing school, and I pushed my way through, and I got my bachelor's degree. And then I wasn't satisfied with that, and I pushed my way through, and I got a master's degree, and I still wasn't satisfied with that. So I pushed my way through, and I started working on my PhD. I was getting ready to graduate. I had just become the regional director of advanced practice providers at Kaiser Permanente in Southern California, and I was overseeing advanced practice provider practice over 15 hospitals, 214 medical office buildings. I was pregnant with my 5th baby, and my life was seemingly perfect. There was nothing that I could have complained about. I, just had an amazing life, and it was all because of the work that I did to move from where I was at and keep my eye focused, which for me, my eye was helping others. I wanted to make sure that I could give back the way that that nurse had given to me. And so think about a time that you had to rework. You just pushed and pushed and pushed, and you began to see the fruits of your labor and began to see everything that came about. And so as you think about that, I also want you to be thinking about the future. So everything that's going on with the coronavirus, everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter, what rework needs to occur in your mind? Just think about it. What rework do you need to start doing? Where do you need to start focusing? So that was the end of my story. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Bye. Okay, just kidding. That wasn't the end of the story. So let's go ahead and continue on, and we'll tell you some more about the story. So on January 13th, 2017, really was having a wonderful life. Thought everything was great. My oldest daughter, Harmony, the one that I had as a teen, was in pre-medical school at UCLA, and I couldn't have been prouder. And so on that morning, I woke up and went to her room. She was a commuter, to go knock on our door, because usually she had left a little bit earlier than me. And that particular morning, her door was still closed and her car was still in the driveway. And so I walked over to her room and went to go knock on the door. And before I knocked on the door, I looked down and I saw a piece of paper on the floor. And so I picked the paper up and I looked at it, and it said, "Don't let the kids see. I love you. Harm." And I immediately dropped it. I didn't know what that meant. I went to open her door, and usually it was locked, and this day it wasn't locked. And I opened the door, I pushed it open, and I found her lying in her bed, and she wasn't breathing. And so I ran over to her, and I did the best CPR that I've ever done in my entire life. And I worked on her, and I worked on her, and I worked on her for what seemed to be forever. And I couldn't bring her back. My daughter Harmony, my teenage daughter Harmony, had taken her life and died by suicide. And it was at that moment that I realized that everything that I thought I knew, that the world was just, in my favor. I had suffered as a kid so that I could live a good life as an adult. Everything that I thought I knew and that I thought I had prepared myself for, I was so wrong. I was wrong about my worldview. I was wrong about how I saw my future. I was wrong about where I was headed. I was wrong about all of it. And I realized that there was so much more to this life, this little life that we had. And so I want you to think about a time that you had to realize that it wasn't all about you, and it wasn't all about everything that you thought it was, but you realized that things had to change. I think in the midst of what's going on right now, mental health is on the top of everybody's mind. How could it not be? And so what are we taking a moment to reflect on and realize in these moments? What are your takeaways? So at that point, I had to reassess. I was pregnant. I was about to finish my PhD, and I was the most depressed I've ever been in my entire life, and I didn't want to leave. I actually had a plan to join my daughter, and I really didn't want to be here. And I came to realize in my reassessment that I had two options. And so one of those options was to just give up on life and join my daughter. Or I had the option of taking everything that I had learned and experienced and applying it so that another mom wouldn't be in my shoes and another mom wouldn't have to bury their child. And so I decided to take all of my pain, all of my grief, and refocus it and reassess my next steps on what I wanted to do. And from that moment forward, I knew that I needed to step up and be an advocate in the mental health space. And I needed to step up and I needed to be the voice for those that didn't have a voice. I needed to step up for former foster kids. I needed to step up as a biracial Black and white woman to condemn everything that is happening to our world right now. And I needed to step up and I needed to act. And that's kind of how I formed the Nurse Leader Network. So the Nurse Leader Network is a business that aims to promote wellness and a life-work balance for nurse leaders. And it also is an organization that helps them grow their career, gives them the tools to be able to do things a little bit easier. And so I want you to think about reassessing. Where are you today? And where do you need to go? And so now I'm going to ask that you take out a piece of paper. And so, yes, you're going to get a test. And so I'll give you a minute or two to take out that piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, I want you to write your to-do list. So your personal and your professional to-do list. So on one side, you'll put professional, one side you'll put personal. And so things might include, like on your personal, like walk the dog and, go to the store and clean my house and, feed my fish, or whatever your personal to-do list might be. It might be getting dressed and going and protesting today. And then what is on your professional to-do list? And so that might be checking emails, and it might be, going to meetings and driving committees and balancing budgets and whatever it is. So I want you to just sit down and write what is your professional to-do list and what is your personal to-do list, and go ahead and write those, and I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, and so you're going to put that paper to the side, and I need you to grab another paper. Yes, I told you there was going to be a test. And on this other paper, I want you to divide it into 4. So it'll be like this. You'll have a side on each square. And I want you to get reanimated. I want you to close your eyes and think about your favorite place. And so it might be coffee shop, might be the beach, your favorite place, wherever that is. I want you to think that you're there. It might be at an airport because you're getting ready to travel. And I want you to pretend that somebody from back in the day, maybe it's from high school, if you're too young from high school, maybe it was from like elementary, whatever. Somebody from that back in the day, an old friend, like a really good old friend, comes up to you and is like, "Oh my gosh, what have you been up to? How are you doing? I missed you." And you are going to socially distance, and you're going to explain to them what your best life is. And so I want you to pretend that you are living today the best life that there is. So for me, an example would be, I volunteer at all my kids as PTA. I don't miss any of their appointments. I regularly exercise and eat a healthy, lifestyle, have a healthy lifestyle. I don't have any student loans. Woo, woo, can I get a woo, woo? And I'm able to donate $50,000 a year to organizations that mean a lot to me, like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and all of these other different organizations that I really, truly love, and that I have time in my schedule to volunteer and to make differences in other people's lives. And so I want you to tell them, what is your best thing? Are you a millionaire? Do you have the best health ever? Who are you helping? Think about all of these things. And what you're going to do is categorize them on that paper. And so you'll kind of figure out which bucket they fill into. What are the top 4 things that are important to you? And so out of the things I just shared with you, my top 4 are my family, my community service, my health, and my finances. So those are my 4 top things. And I just write in those areas, what are the perfect things? And so I'm going to give you a few minutes. Go ahead, write out your perfect life. I can't wait to hear about what it is, but what does your perfect life look like? Is it a life without racism? Is it a life without coronavirus? Who are you helping in your ideal life? Who is it that you are helping get further in your ideal life? Let's get some reanimation in here. So I'll give you another minute or so to wrap that up. And I would love to see in the chat box, if the chat box function is working, some of the amazing things that you guys can't wait to be doing in 5 years from now. So, you know, I told you that I was going to help you define your mission, your priorities, and the framework for resiliency. And so why don't we go ahead and do that now? Which RE were you in? Were you in reimagining state? Are you in the reassessing state? Are you in the, realizing state? Where are you? Which RE are you in? And are you ready to become resilient? So in terms of your resilience, what I want you to do now is I want you to take that piece of paper that has your to-do list, and I want you to take that piece of paper that has where you are going to be in the next 5 years. And I want you to cross off anything on your to-do list that will not directly get you where you want to be in the next 5 years. That's right. I said cross it off. You have my permission to stop doing it, and you can stop doing it today. And I've heard things like, Chris, I can't stop answering emails, I'll get fired. And I'm going to tell you to challenge yourself. If you're getting a lot of emails that you don't feel are necessary, then look at how you can empower your people to not have to send them and make the decisions without having to send them to you. Look at different ways you can bucket your emails. So challenge yourself. Doesn't matter what's on your to-do list. Challenge yourself that if it is not going to get you to where you want to be in the next 5 years, it's something that is a priority that should not be taking your time. You should take it off the priority list. It's not something that should be taking your time. How are you feeling about that? Kind of nervous? All right, so let me teach you a little bit about resiliency. So how many of you heard of the Wheel of Life? Show of hands. All right, so the Wheel of Life, the theory goes that if you are lacking in any of these areas, it's like riding on a flat tire, right? It's a tire that just isn't going to get you very far. And so in order to boost up your resilience, you need to make sure that you're contributing in each of these areas, which is not an easy thing to do. But when you reflect on it and you actively take steps to every day incorporate little pieces of it into your behavior, you'll see that you become more rounded and your resiliency builds up. And so in terms of the self, what are things that you need to do to fill your own cup? And for me, that is meditation, and it's self-development. It's making sure that I'm constantly kind of helping others. In the health and fitness space, where do you feel like, are you at a 0 in that area? Are you at a 10? You exercise every day, you're eating healthy, then that's not an area you want to really put a lot of time into creating new behaviors in, because you have behaviors that work well. What about intimate relationships or family? What about your fun and your social life? So how has coronavirus and the curfews impacted any of your fun and social life? And what are different ways and steps you can do to get back involved in those things, albeit maybe a little different? What about your career? What kind of steps have you taken in terms of your career? Are you happy where you're at? Are you looking for that next promotion? Same thing with finances. Are you satisfied with what you're doing financially? And then personal development. What is it that you want to make you well-rounded? What is it that you want to learn? What's really got your attention? And so you're going to take this little wheel of life and really assess where you're at. And I'll get these slides out to you so you can take a look at it, but you really want to assess where you're at. And anywhere that you're not, like an 8 or a 10, you need to create some SMART goals around it. And SMART goals I'll go over what they have in them, but they don't need to be big things, and they shouldn't be. So for example, in finance, you wouldn't say my SMART goal is to pay off my $200,000 school loan, which it is, but it's such a large goal that it's not going to be easily attainable, or will you achieve it really quickly? And so in order to build resilience, it has to be things that are realistic. And so you want to make sure it's specific. So it might be, I'm going to add an extra $30 to my student loan repayments every month. And measurable, you know, I just gave you the quantity, so $30. Is it achievable? Yeah, I have an extra $30 a month that I can put into that. Is it relevant? Yeah, it's totally relevant. It's going to lead me to where I want to go in my financial dream, which is to be able to have my school loans paid off. Is it time bound? Yeah, every single month I'm going to be giving that extra $30. Let's think of another one. So it might be family. So for me, my family is super important. After losing a child, I realized you can't get that time back, and it just brought in a new light to motherhood to me. And so for me, one thing that I really insist on doing is having a meal with my children at the table, no electronics, minimum 1 or 2 nights a week. And so what is it specific? We're going to have dinner together with no electronics. Measurable, 2 nights a week. Is it achievable? Absolutely. Is it relevant? Yes, because it's something that fills my cup and fills their cup. And is it time bound? Yeah, we're going to do it every single week. And so think about how you can take tiny, tiny little goals, SMART goals for health and fitness. It might be, I'm going to incorporate vegetables once per meal. But what will happen is you'll begin to create this habit that becomes second nature, and then you can build upon that habit to create new things that'll help you get that closer to your goals in terms of your wheel of life. And so that really is important to be reflecting on a continual basis to make sure that you're able to build up your resiliency, because you can't pour from an empty cup and you can't drive on a flat tire. So, you know, I told you I was going to teach you about the priorities and your life's mission and your goals and all. And so we are now here. You have taken off everything that is on your to-do list that does not align with your 5-year list. And I want you to take that to-do list now that's left on there and look at what are you missing and what else do you need to add to get to your 5-year list. So really important, look at the wheel of life and think about if, for example, one of your goals is to open up a business. Let's just start there. What are some steps that you can add onto your to-do list to begin to get you there? And it might be something as simple as look up how to open a business, or what's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp. It might be looking at, do I want investors, and what does that path look like, and connecting with people so that you can have conversations. It might be like, oh, I need a change of career. And so your next step might be going on and looking for different folks that you could interview to really explore different career avenues. Or your next step might be, I need to really lose some weight. And so today I'm going to do some more vegetables. And so really look at what your to-do list versus your 5-year list and how that looks. Next, you're going to do something that's super fun. And so I want you to take that little form you had, the one that has all of the things that you want to have in the next 5 years, and I want you to fold it into this airplane. And so if you haven't learned how to fold it into an airplane, you're going to take this classic Dart airplane, and I want you to fold it up right now into your airplane. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And the reason I'm having you fold everything up into an airplane is because I think it's really important to have something symbolizing where you're going. Where is it that you are today, and where are you going? Because there's going to be days that are hard. There's going to be days that you're going to give up and that you're not going to want to keep doing it. And what I want you to do is I want you to take this airplane and remind yourself that it is taking you to where you want and need to go. And I want you to open it up and reflect on it from time to time, and remember and remind yourself of why you're doing what you want to do. What was your ultimate goal? What are your ultimate, end game? Where are you trying to go? And keep doing it. And you'll take this out and you're going to refresh it, because what happens now, you might not want in 5 years, or if you've reached all those goals in 5 years, you might have some new goals in 5 years. So really important to look at where you're at, where you're going, and making sure that the steps you're taking are going to get you to where you want to go, because if they're not, you need to stop taking those steps. So I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. I hope you've learned a little bit about how you could become more resilient, a little bit about how to live your life in accordance with your mission and your purpose, and a little bit about how to prioritize your next steps to get you where you want to be in the next 5 years. Have a wonderful day, everybody.